morning, everyone. Hope everyone rested well, ready to face another day. You know, if you're not resting well, I think I might have an idea as to why, and I'm going to get into that in today's subject matter. I'll talk to you all about darkness, which is appropriate, but anyway, physical and spiritual darkness. First, I'll talk about the physical aspects of it, which I know a little bit about, and then we'll get more into the spiritual. But, getting back to what I just said, if people watched the Doc Marquis video that I put up on the community page, and if you didn't, I suggest you do. It was recorded a long time ago at the Prophecy Club, and I know the Prophecy Club, I get it. But he was a guest speaker, and he did a really, really good job in that video. And it was a long presentation, so that video just cut out the segment about Halloween, and then he got into Valentine's Day and everything else beyond that. But anyway, if people watch that video, you may have learned something, things that you didn't know, things maybe you already did know and you didn't learn anything, I don't know. But if you didn't, it's up on the community page, Doc Marquis. I can't remember the title of it. It talks about Halloween or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, it's pretty easy to find. But, he mentioned something that I didn't catch before. That it's the 29th through the 31st. That is the times of darkness, basically, according to Samhain, that from the ancient Celtics and Druids and so forth that started all these practices, this witchcraft and everything. The 29th through the 31st. So if people are having difficulty sleeping, or they're restless, or got a lot going on, whatever the case may be, as we all do, it could be pertaining to that. So, that gets more into the spiritual aspect of the darkness, but I just want to throw that out there. So that could be a reason, the 29th through the 31st, because today's the 30th, right? So anyway, just want to throw that out there. People can, look more into that if they want to. But, I'm going to talk to y'all about darkness, because I've received quite a few, I guess you could say, messages, text, emails, seen some videos and whatnot over the last, day or so, pertaining to darkness, really. And watched an interview with the guy's name is Christopher M. Brock with Jamie Walden on the Christopher M. Brock YouTube channel. And then it's also on Jamie Walden's YouTube channel. A really good interview that he gave, kind of talking about it a little bit too. And then, just some other things. So I'm going to talk about the physical darkness here, okay? Because we're coming toward the end of October now. And like I said yesterday, if there's going to be another October surprise at the very end here, well, we've only got 2 days now. Today, tomorrow, and then that's it. And then October's technically over, right? Well, if there's going to be another one, something's going to happen pretty quick, pretty drastic, pretty major to get people's attention. Personally, I don't see it happening. That's me personally. However, I would be foolish and remiss not to talk about it. Foolish not to prepare for a possible physical darkness in the next couple of days. And remiss not to let you guys know what's going on regarding this. Because some weird stuff is going on, okay? Weird stuff that's happening now and things that I remember previously regarding a possible physical darkness. And the first one is a few years ago, maybe it was last Super Bowl, the Super Bowl before, or whatever. If people watch the commercials, don't watch the commercials, or maybe you go back and watch them later, they seem to predict a coming darkness with power outages. There was one with Harrison Ford in it. He's sitting there with his dog or whatever, and the power starts flickering and the power goes out. And, but the party must go on. The party still goes on even though the power goes out, kind of thing, That's what they think anyway. So, but there's a lot of predictive programming out there through commercials and movies, television shows or whatever about a coming darkness. And something I forgot to mention on my previous channel, I would say previous, but the channel that I'm not using currently, my Fear No Man channel, and the last live stream I did that I shared to the community page here, and they still have it up as far as I know on the main channel. But there's a show out a few years ago called Revolution that was on NBC. I think it was around 2012 time frame or whatever. And they had it on for like 2 seasons. I think they probably planned it for a third. But I think what happened was they were just getting a little too close to the truth and letting people know what was happening a little too much. And I think they canceled it. I don't know that for sure. That's just kind of the inclination I got. Because that's exactly what they were dealing with. They were dealing with darkness. They were dealing with an EMP strike, and all of a sudden everybody was in darkness. They go back to the time of the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, literally, where they're actually fighting each other with swords, and these people that kind of had an idea what was going on, or they saw their opportunity to be able to rule the world the way they wanted to. They kind of created their own nation within the United States. This one guy was such a narcissist, he actually called the areas that he controlled the Monroe Republic. His character's name was Sebastian Monroe. He called it the Monroe Republic. And then, of course, you had your states that stood out, for freedom or whatever the case may be. And, Georgia, Texas, places like that, where they were like, nope, we're not going to have any of this. Pretty interesting show. You could probably find it for free on Tubi or some other app or whatever. Maybe I'll post it or whatever if I get a chance. But very interesting show. Not exactly a family show or anything like that, but it shows, how people will survive and what they'll do and what they're capable of doing in the darkness, and what happens when oppression and tyranny completely takes over. So this coming darkness or whatever, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen over these next couple of days. I really don't. But it's weird stuff are happening. Like, if people check out the channel Penguin 6, I shared it from the Rumble channel, and other people reported on it. They were doing some military exercises, landing Black Hawk helicopters and stuff like that around the Capitol building and the Library of Congress and everything else. And apparently they were talking about, exercises with evacuating people. And it's like, what the heck? What's going on here, And, I mean, they've done that kind of stuff before. But it's interesting that they happen to be doing it right around this time frame. And, just very strange things. And they're doing these operations in the dark. Isn't that interesting? But maybe it's because they don't want to bring as much attention to people or to the operation, to the exercise. I don't know. But they're doing it in the dark. And then in Atlanta, this is interesting. In Atlanta, on November 5th, so Selection Day, through the 7th, they're doing a cyber exercise. Kind of like a live cyber exercise. Well, if people have paid attention to things in the past, sometimes live exercises become real exercises. But see, all of this would be after October if that were to occur. And so I'm thinking, all right, possibly in early November, or, pre-post selection, what have you. Good possibility, I would say, that there could be some type of physical darkness. But say, for instance, it did still happen in October. Say there was an October surprise. Well, I was watching the World Series again a little bit last night. Yankees spanked the Dodgers, right? Because I'm curious to see. And I was wrong yesterday. They actually have the 3 games in New York. So Game 5? Yeah, Game 5 tonight is actually in New York. And then, if the Yankees happen to win again, then they have a travel day, which happens to be tomorrow, Halloween, and then Game 6 and Friday back in California. So the reason I was thinking about this, like, if there was some type of darkness, some type of chaotic event, something to get everyone's attention, people going to these stadiums, for the World Series or whatever, could be in danger if the lights go out. So that's kind of why I mentioned that, whether it's in New York, whether it's in California, what have you. So, I mean, now if the Dodgers would have won last night, swept the Yankees 4-0, series would be over. you'd have still people in stadiums, college and NFL stadiums and arenas and going to concerts, stuff like that. But the World Series at least will be done. But that's not the case. It continues on. So, and it might continue on further if the Yankees win again tonight, which they very well could. They got the momentum back, that's for sure. They spanked them. But anyway, enough for the sports report. But the darkness, could pertain still to this October, and if not, maybe go into November or whatever, or beyond. I really don't know. The point being is they seem to be planning for something, and then, thinking from a military aspect in my own experiences dealing with darkness, I know for a fact, like if anybody's, I mentioned it many times before, I'll mention it again, if anybody's ever read the book Art of War, not the movie. The movie's terrible. But you ever read the book Art of War by Sun Tzu or what have you? You know that taking down communication and putting your enemy into darkness is an awesome way to take your enemy off guard and to win. Because darkness, just like a lack of communication, causes confusion. And, that's the first thing they did. Or I should say, what happened. Let's put it that way. That's the first thing that happened after Helene hit the Carolinas, Eastern Tennessee or whatever. I know this for a fact because I was getting the information on it. Is they took down communication. People could not communicate. They could not talk on their phones, or maybe ham radios worked or whatever, but they could not communicate. And then the darkness came. Now, the interesting thing about the physical darkness, and the good thing about it, is eventually the sun comes up, or eventually there's daylight. So you're not constantly in darkness, okay? But if they were to do something, or the Father allows something to happen to put us in darkness, the darkness also is probably most likely communication outages as well. So that's frightening, because not only are people in a physical darkness, but they can't communicate. And if you're alone, if you're single or whatever, then it gets really frightening. Now, if you have family, friends that you live with or whatever the case may be, not as bad. Some people freak out, other people don't. Everybody according to their own gifts and how, their experiences and how they handle situations. Some people panic, some people don't, whatever the situation may be. But, when it comes to a physical darkness, though, I mean, if people remember the interview I gave, and I've gotten quite a few new subscribers to this channel, and I thank you for that. So a lot of people may not be familiar with this, but I gave an interview back in March of 2018 with Pastor Ben Faircloth about my experiences in Desert Storm, where I experienced physical darkness for a period of time on a few different occasions. And even, I didn't mention this in the interview, but even as a child, I was in situations where I was trapped in darkness. So I kind of have some experience in this. And if people want to hear that interview, just type in Benjamin Faircloth, Ken Roberts in the search bar, and it'll come right up. It's Prophetic Worldview, Benjamin Faircloth from March of 2018. And I pretty much explained everything there. And keep in mind, this was before I started a YouTube channel. At the time, I was active on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not anymore. So it was quite a while ago. And the interesting thing is, I haven't mentioned, I don't feel led to start a YouTube channel or anything. Things change. But anyway, I pretty much given my testimony about what I experienced. And it was an uncontrollable darkness on a beautiful day. And then, the sky gets blackened because of the oil well fires, we found out later, at least that's what they told us. And it started to rain black rain, and it was pretty crazy. It was pretty strange. Lasted for about a half an hour. And it was an uncontrollable darkness. There was nothing we could do about it. Thank God it only lasted about a half an hour. Because the thing about darkness is, if people have done any psychological studies or they've seen any documentaries or shows on this or whatever, you put someone in darkness for a long time, their mind starts to go, man. They a lot of people can't handle it. They're not mentally strong enough. They start to hallucinate. They're not equipped. We're not equipped to be a people of darkness, obviously. If you're a believer in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you accept Him as your Lord and Savior, you're not a person of darkness. We're people of light. So we're not equipped to constantly be in darkness. And you'll notice that people who constantly put themselves in darkness are in darkness. They have a certain demeanor because they're always in the dark, But anyway, when it comes to being trapped in darkness, it can really mess with you. And as a child, that happened to me. I got locked in a church building, actually upstairs. Weird thing is, Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, when I was a kid. And, my folks are downstairs having choir practice or whatever, my brother and I upstairs and at 11 and 8 years old, learning about Revelation and doing a study on Revelation, it's 666 and all the rest of this stuff, as just young children, and I guess they figured that would be a fun thing for us to learn at those ages or whatever. Never too young to learn about the end times, right? But anyway, and then I go to the restroom, and apparently people forgot I was in there, didn't know I was in there. Maybe I should have told somebody, I don't know. But I come out and I'm in complete darkness. And I'm familiar with this hallway, with this building or whatever, because I go to school there at this Christian school every single day, through my 6th grade year. But for the life of me, man, I could not find the light switch anywhere. And it was pitch black. And I couldn't find the door. I couldn't find the light switch. I couldn't find anything. And I'm 11 years old, man. And I'm just like, I'm thinking the devil's coming to get me. We just learned about Revelation and 666 and everything, right? I mean, give me a break. I'm an 11-year-old kid, And I'm thinking, all right, what am I going to do about this? So, I get down on my hands and, I feel along the walls for the longest time for a light switch. I can't find one. And then as this is a long corridor, and the further I go down, the more frightened I get. I'm not gonna lie. So I get down on my hands and knees. I start crawling on the floor, and looking for any kind of light from like any kind of doorway or whatever. And I don't know why, but I just felt like I was safer the lower I was. I don't know why, but anyway, so I'm crawling on my hands and knees. And I finally see like a crack under a door where there's light, because technically it was still light out. I think this was spring or summertime, 6:30, 7 o'clock. So it was probably summertime, probably about 6:30 in the evening or whatever, Central Time. And so it was still light out. So I see a light under the door. So I'm like, oh, yes. So I'm able to push that door open and I'm finally in the light. But it doesn't give me enough light to find a switch back down the hallway. I say, there ain't no way I'm going back down that hallway. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of scared at this point. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I could just sit up here and wait for like the longest time. Or I go to the window. People say, this is crazy. This is nuts. Yeah, probably. But this is what I did. I go to the window. And I'm able to open the window from the inside. And I look down. I'm 2 stories up. I'm like, I was a pretty adventurous kid. Not the greatest athlete, but not a wimp either. I was like, I wonder, now, if I just jump out, I'm going to die. So I said, but if I climb out the window and I hang on from the ledge, then that will, kind of lessen my fall, at least the distance of my fall. And maybe I break or sprain an ankle or something, but I'm not going to die, and I can get out of this situation. Now, people say, why didn't you just sit up there and wait and play your video game? Well, 1, because it's 1981 and I didn't have a video game. 2, I was kind of scared. 3, I didn't like being stuck up there. I hated the school as it was anyway. Last thing I wanted to do was get stuck up in the building that I had to be in 6 days a week, pretty much, because every day I went to school there, and my mom was a teacher assistant at the time, and I just hated it. I absolutely hated it. Couldn't get away with anything. I didn't have a normal childhood, man. We had to wear this stupid yellow shirt with a brown clip-on tie as a uniform. I hated it. So, anyway, so I was like, I'm getting out of here, man. This sucks. So I hung from the window and I fell. And fell to the ground. And what can I say? The angels cushioned my fall. I didn't get injured at all. No sprain, no breaks, no nothing. Just emotionally and physically upset. And thankful to be out of there. So if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have sat up there, and just kind of waited. But like I said, hey, live and learn. I'm an 11-year-old kid. I figured I could do it. I did it. The Lord cushioned my fall. And everything was cool. And I got out of the situation. But, later on in life, when I really needed it, when I was in Desert Storm, and I'm stuck like a sardine can in the amphibious assault vehicles, that with the Marines, and we're all shoved in there, can barely move for 3 days with gas mask on in a dark environment for 3 days, And, I mean, if you're not mentally tough, you're going to lose your mind. But you can't afford to, because one, they'll beat you to death. The Marines won't put up with it. and two, you just can't afford to, especially as the corpsman, you're supposed to be the mentally tough and strong mentally and so forth, and even physically, and you're supposed to be able to take the things the other guys can't take and whatever else and keep them in check. And even as a 19-year-old kid, or 20-year-old kid or whatever, that was my job. So, but I was never so happy in my life to see a ramp come down. And I was like, thank God we can get out of here, because later on in life, that's what happened, I was just like, I don't care if we get shot, killed, whatever, war's over, war's still going on. I'm just glad the ramp went down, and we were finally able to run out. And by that time, everything was over, But we just took our positions and kind of waited. But it was just nice to be able to stretch your legs and get out and to be able to move, which after sitting for 3 days, like on this hard bench, and I'm serious, no room, man. 12 Marines and myself, the corpsman, you can't move. And you're in a gas mask, man. And this chemical weapons gear and everything. It's miserable. It's horrible. And you're in the dark. So you got to be cool. And you got to keep your wits about you. You got to be mentally tough, right? So that's the same thing with this physical darkness. People are going to have to be mentally tough. We get trapped in darkness, in electronic darkness or whatever. People are going to have to be mentally tough, whether you're with your family, with your friends, you're alone, whatever the case may be. You got to be mentally tough. You got to rely on the Lord. You got to be ready. Whether it happens this month, next month, later down the road, you got to be mentally tough. You got to be strong. You got to be ready to handle these kind of things. So that's why I'm telling people about this now, with this physical darkness that we could be in. And like I said, at least there will be light eventually. But, with the darkness that I endured, a few times in my life, 3 that I can definitely think of off the top of my head, Plus that I worked a lot in the dark in law enforcement security and whatnot. And I've been in power outages before. So I'm kind of, I wouldn't say used to it, but I feel like I can handle it okay. But if other people haven't been in those situations, you just don't know what type of person you're going to be until you're in adversity. And what type of person, more importantly than that, other people are that are around you until they face adversity. Everybody can talk a big game. Everybody talks tough and acts tough. But until you're in the situation, you just don't know. So be aware of that physical darkness that could be coming, whether it's cyber, whether it's electronic, whatever it is, communication outage. Because I know, if I want to hurt my enemy, people that I don't care about, or whatever the case may be, if I'm a scumbag, the very first thing I'm going to do is take down their communication and put them in darkness, because it causes confusion and fear. And that's what you want your enemy to be in, confusion and fear, because it's easier to take control of them then. It's easier to win. That's what it's about. People say, oh, that's not very Christian-like of you or whatever. It is what it is. It's reality. If you want to win, put your enemy, take down their communications, you put them in darkness. That's how you win. So, anyway, so that's exactly what I expect them to do to us, and the Father to allow eventually here, because I think that's what's going to happen. And I just saw a Trump 2024 sign, so I wasn't going to mention this, but yeah, I will now, because it kind of pertains to this. There was an interesting Florida Maquis video that came out where it kind of got my attention. I didn't agree with everything in it, but it kind of got my attention. Whereas, with the vote coming up for the selection and whatnot, in his video, he pretty much predicted a Harris win. And I'm seeing that more and more, where people are predicting that. But you know why? It's going to be my fault and your fault and everybody else's fault that either didn't vote or doesn't vote, or claims to be a Christian, a believer in Jesus Christ, and didn't vote. See, but here's the thing, though, about his video, is as believers in Jesus, I don't really want to use this term, but I think people understand the meaning behind it. It's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing, stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, I'm just talking like an adult here, because it's like if we vote and things don't turn out the way people want them to turn out, then it's our fault. If we don't vote and things don't turn out the way people want them to turn out, then it's our fault. It's kind of like the main topic was the abortion issue, right? Well, if enough people don't show up, then there's going to be abortion on demand. Well, there already is anyway, for the most part. I mean, it's a state's right, or not right, but it's a state's decision. Now it's back to the states rather than federal or what have you. But it's like everything is the Christian's fault. Everything is. Whether you vote, whether you don't vote, whether you support this, don't support this, it all boils down to somehow it's going to come back on us. And we know that's biblical, and eventually that's going to be more and more blame, more and more hate, more and more anger, more and more, and eventually it'll come to persecution in the U.S. like they have in other countries. Extreme, intense, violent, hateful persecution. Well, right now it's kind of like we're tolerated. We put up with people put up with us, kind of thing. We're tolerated, not really liked, not really hated too much, but at least not where I live, but tolerated. Just kind of put up with. It's like, oh, all right, I'll put up with your garbage. I'll tolerate you. I'll put up with you for the time being. But eventually, later on down the road, I'm going to blame you and everybody else that didn't do what you were supposed to do. And that was kind of the point of his video, is just like, when the results eventually come out, it's gonna be learned, apparently, that it's because the Christians didn't come out the way they should have, according to what people believe, and vote a certain way and show up the way that they were supposed to. And it's all going to be our fault. So get ready for it. And here's the kicker. It'll be your fault whether you vote or not. Even if you vote, it'll still be your fault. You know why? Because you'll be lumped into that category. We'll all be lumped into that category. It's all their fault. That's why we're in this situation. It's all their fault. It's their fault that Harris got in. It's their fault this didn't happen. It's their fault that didn't happen. You just wait. It's always going to be our fault. So it's kind of like in life, there comes a point in people's lives, I think, where they say, it doesn't matter what I really do anymore. It's just never good enough. I know, because people have emailed me, texted me with those type of sentiments, It's never good enough. It doesn't matter what I do. It's just never good enough. So it's not necessarily that they quit. It's just that they've resigned themselves to the fact that it doesn't matter. It's because it'll never be good enough, which is actually a good place to come to in your life, because then you have no choice but to submit to the Lord completely, totally, and willingly. Because you know that if you just submit to your Father on a daily basis and you don't care what anybody else says or thinks or whatever else, you're not a jerk. You just don't care. You're just like, yeah, you're entitled to your opinion or whatever. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I'm going to do what my Father tells me to do. I'm going to do what the Lord tells me to do. I'm going to submit to His will, and I'm just simply going to obey Him, and let the chips fall where they may. Blame me, don't blame me, whatever. It doesn't bother me, because if the Lord tells me to vote, I'll vote. If He puts it on my heart to vote for a certain person, candidate, whatever, I'll do it. He hasn't. He simply hasn't. Like I said, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils. I'm going to abstain. And people say, well, that's going to be your fault then, because if he doesn't get in. Oh, whatever, blame me. Whatever. But just remember, when you're pointing a finger at somebody, you're pointing three back at yourself. But anyway, I mean, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. I mean, vote, don't vote. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. But at the same time, everybody's always going to find somebody to blame. It was never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. So just get ready for it. Just be ready for it. I'm getting ready for it. I'm getting ready for it, physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. Get ready for it. Just like get ready for being in the darkness whenever that comes. Be ready for it. And as far as the spiritual darkness goes, I see people, they're going to start their prayer meetings or whatever to, against witchcraft, and that's all great and everything, except it's focusing on a certain individual and their family and their platform and their agenda and their narrative, and and taking the country back, and why don't we just do it to protect, for everyone's protection, against this witchcraft, against the warlocks and the witches and the evil out there and so forth. Why don't we do that? Like Pastor Hank is going to do from God's Soldiers Watchmen on Halloween night. He even called his stream, or his prayer war hour, no Halloween, basically, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to pray, and we're going to pray for protection, and we're going to pray against the evil forces, and we're going to pray for salvation. And we're going to be apolitical. We're not concerned about what's going to happen in the selection or whatever the case may be, and pray for protection because they're going to D.C. He and a group are going to D.C. and they're going to preach during the day and whatnot, and they're going to try to win souls for Jesus. Why don't we do that instead of, well, we need to pray against the witches that are coming against our candidate and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's fine. Pray for protection. That's fine. We're supposed to pray for those in charge, those in leadership positions. I get all that. I understand that. So pray for their protection and everything. But let's just not have it so focused. Because I have people send me videos or whatnot, and at the end, it's just like the prayer at the end. The whole thing is it's like 45 focused, the whole MAGA rally at Madison Square Garden and everything. And then this person prays at the end for his family and his protection and everybody, that are voting for him and blah, blah, blah. Why don't we just pray for everybody, that can be saved, that are willing to be saved? And no matter, what they believe, don't believe regarding politics or whatever, why don't we just be apolitical, and why don't we just do what the Lord wants us to do? And if he tells you to vote, vote. If that's what you have to vote according to your conscience. You have to do according to what God is telling you to do. Like I said, it doesn't matter to me. I'm apolitical about this whole thing. I'm just going to submit to the Father's will and do what he tells me to do. So when it comes to this spiritual darkness, fast, pray, but pray for everybody. Pray for a lot of people. Pray for a lot of different things. Pray for these pagan Babylonian churches that are going to do these trunk or treats, and these pastors that are probably so ignorant that they don't understand that they're bringing curses upon the church body, their own congregation, by engaging in witchcraft, because they won't take 20 minutes out of their day and listen to a guy like Doc Marquis that tells them the truth about Halloween, how it all got started. The people won't take 17 to 20 minutes out of their day and listen to a segment, just informing them about Halloween and the pagan, practices and the witchcraft and everything else. Not just in this holiday, but all the holidays, And this is why I kind of don't buy into, well, it's going to be dark this time and that time or whatever else. Maybe not. But I've heard for years that this is the last Christmas, this is the last Christmas, this is the last Christmas. There won't be lights up, there won't be lights up, there still is. The party must go on. The party always goes on. They celebrate no matter what. There may not be as many lights, there might not be as many deals, there may not be as many gatherings or whatever else, but the party goes on regardless, so I don't buy it, and the last thing I'll talk about is with Jamie's interview with this guy Christopher Brock. He mentioned again the whole, people freaking out over the frequency, and is becoming homicidal maniacs or whatever. But he went further this time, that a virologist actually came out that talking about spiritual darkness, and stated that, yeah, there's some nanotech, nano stuff, but nanobot stuff in the thing that people got a few years ago. And I don't know if it's 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4 shot. I know it sounds like Dr. Seuss there. I have no idea. But, I don't know. But he mentioned how that this is, has a lot to do with it. The frequency, the siren that goes off, or whatever frequency on people's cell phone, most like an iPhone 16 would be my guess, but maybe not. Maybe some other type of products as well. I don't know. But it had to do with the people that got the B shots. So, like I said, hey, take it to the Lord, listen to Jamie's interview or whatever, but this is what the virologist said, not Jamie, not the guy Christopher. This is what the virologist that Jamie quoted said. So it goes back to, the vision that he had, or dream, or what have you, regarding, the homicidal maniacs in the mall or whatnot, and how this could be like a worldwide event. Now, am I saying that's going to happen today or tomorrow, or actually he said that he had a knowing that it was 2 days before a national election. But like I said, he didn't say which one. He didn't say if it was this year. He didn't say if it was something down the road. He didn't even say it was an American election. He just said he had a knowing that it was 2 days before a national election. But if it is 2 days, I got a Freemason in front of me. God bless you. Get saved. Get right. Come out of the stupidity. My goodness. Anyway, got distracted there for a second. You just never know what you're going to see on the roads anymore. So if it is, then that's November 3rd. 2 days before. Remember the 5th of November. So if that were to occur pre-selection time frame or whatever, and if it has to do with this selection, and this year, then yeah, then we could be here where the homicidal maniacs basically come out. So maybe you don't want to be in public places out in large crowds on November 3rd. I don't know. Take it to the Holy Spirit. Take it to the Lord. Ask Jesus. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's up to you. But all I'm saying is, that's what he said. He said he had a knowing that it was 2 days prior to a national election, he called it. But anyway, on the, but like I said, he didn't say if it was American. He didn't say if it was this election or anything of that nature. So, I don't know. I got to go. But y'all have a blessed day. Take care. Hope this was helpful to you. Yeah, just be aware of that physical and that spiritual darkness that could be coming. I don't think it'll happen today or tomorrow. Could. Wouldn't surprise me. There's so much darkness in the world now and so much evil. One last thing real quick, too, regarding that evil. If people don't know who Grady Judd is, I call him kind of America's sheriff, sheriff of Polk County, Florida. There was a huge sting operation with surrounding counties, and I think there were maybe federal agencies involved or whatever, where they busted like 157 perverts, pedophiles, child sex traffickers, whatever else. Put out a big press conference about it. I shared it a while back, but people could look it up, maybe just put in Grady Judd in YouTube or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, bottom line is, a lot of these were Disney employees. A lot of them were illegal aliens. That's what I call them. I don't care. Illegal aliens. Take the video down. I don't care. A lot of them were illegals that came here. A lot of them were, like I said, Disney employees. Some of them were law enforcement. Some of them were teachers. It's disgusting. All of these people involved in child sex trafficking in Florida. So, won't shock me a bit if Florida gets hammered again by a hurricane just pre-selection, post-selection, on selection day, or whatever, where this whole thing just spirals out of control and they can't count the votes in Florida because people can't get to the polls. I don't know, folks. I'm not telling people get out of Florida, but I'd get out of Florida. Just saying. I know that's going to offend people and hurt people's feelings, but there is a lot of evil happening everywhere. But it's specifically, many times, Grady Judd has come out and given out his press conferences about child sex trafficking rings being busted, Disney employees, up the yin-yang, all these other crazy people doing this stuff. Not saying it's not happening in other states, but Florida is prevalent, all right? And Grady Judd's the one that's coming out talking about it and talking about all these stings where they keep busting all these people doing all this sex trafficking. And God bless them. I'm glad they're getting busted. I'm glad they're going down. They need to be going down. But at the same time, it's all happening in Florida. All right, I really got to go. Y'all take care. God bless you. Bye-bye.